Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine
What's
a
your
light on
story?
incredible. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight Sessions. My name is Avital and I am the host for today's episode. And I'm really excited to be talking to Chip Warner, who is the Associate Director of Disability Network Eastern Michigan. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So let's just dive right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks. I was well known as Coach Chip for more than 20 years while serving as a conditioning coach to high school, college, and professional athletes. During that time, I had the honor of working with a wide range of athletes, including blind and low vision long distance runners, and a member of the U.S. Paralympic team. I had relied heavily on social media, digital media, websites to promote my business, and I was unaware that I was non-accessible and failing to reach a large audience. My successes as an athlete and a fitness professional propelled my small business until a career-ending injury completely altered my path. The injury forced me to sell my training center and reevaluate my profession and my means of supporting my family. But I found a new home working with Disability Network Eastern Michigan, and it's quite exciting.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that bit about yourself. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Disability Network Eastern Michigan and tell us a little bit about your role in the day-to-day.
Yeah, my pleasure. Serving now as one of the associate directors for Disability Network Eastern Michigan, also known as DNEM, I'm able to shift my passion for helping others into a new arena. I proudly guide our community education and outreach teams, and we strive to enhance digital accessibility standards, forge new community connections, and deliver new peer support programs to generate relationships for the organization. We're a Center for Independent Living, which essentially means we're an organization of people with disabilities, serving people with disabilities. Centers for Independent Living are responsible for having at least 50% of their staff identify as having a disability, and more than 70%, actually 77% currently, of our staff identify as having a disability.
Wow. I actually did not know that. So that's really interesting. Thanks so much for sharing that bit of information. I'm curious to hear if there's any specific accomplishments, either through your time at the Disability Network Eastern Michigan, or previous to you working within the organization, that you're most proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. We've recently grown quite tremendously, actually. We serve Lapeer, Macomb, Huron, Oakland, Sanilac, St. Clair, and Tuscola counties. For those unfamiliar with how large that territory is, if you look at the mitten, which is Michigan, we basically go from right here at the 8-mile line where Eminem used to rap all the way up here to the very tip of the thumb. It's a very robust territory for us. As with all Centers for Independent Living, our core services are advocacy, information and referral, independent living skills training, and transition services. Just in information and referral alone, we serve more than 6,700 to more than 7,000 requests for information and referral every year. One of the biggest programs that we've changed recently is our adaptive recreation program, which is really geared towards creating an inclusive environment for indoor, outdoor, and virtual recreation programs to allow folks to re-engage. Our accomplishments have really been quite robust. When we talk about Disability Network Eastern Michigan, our vision statement notes that the work each one of us does helps towards our vision of a community where those living with disabilities are empowered to pursue personal growth and choice through access to community resources and supportive services. In my time that I've been with the organization, we've really become known as strong advocates for digital accessibility to promote inclusive communication. We were all aware of communication barriers that existed in the disability world prior to COVID-19. During the pandemic, we shifted to a virtual environment, much like the rest of the world. And we quickly realized that the impact of digital communication inequity was really quite extreme. So we've been working aggressively with community partners to raise awareness, create change, and create best practices when using technology. Part of that has rolled into our redevelopment of our disability awareness training, which is now known as diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. DEI is something that we're all probably very familiar with, but adding that accessibility piece is so critical because now these presentations allow us to conduct in a panel format that provides participants to understand barriers and paths to independence through the variety of lenses that our staff bring while sharing their experiences. And a lot of it always comes back to digital accessibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that's so important and really online with or on par with what we are doing here at Accessibility also. I think it's really interesting that you brought up how COVID impacted the world within a digital space. And something that we talk about a lot is how, these accessibility issues in the digital space were there for the communities of people with disabilities prior to COVID and prior to the pandemic. And the pandemic really brought a lot of those issues to light for people who, don't identify with a disability and don't, navigate the internet or a website with a screen reader or keyboard navigation or need, specific colors or, colors dulled, whatever that might be. So definitely very, very interesting. And thank you so much for sharing that. The next question that I want to talk about is something that we do ask all of our guests. But we always get a very different answer, just of course, based off of your background, off of, things that you've done in the past or the organization that you're working with or the communities that you're working with every day. But I'm curious to hear what accessibility means to you.
Yeah, that's really a fantastic question. I think when we talk about accessibility, far too often it's confused with the word compliance. And I like to remind folks, the Oxford Language Dictionary defines accessibility as being the quality of being able to be reached or entered, being easy to obtain or use, and then easily understood and appreciated. I feel it's important to recognize that our goal is to create an environment that easily meets the needs of our consumers and provides the same options and choices experienced by those without disabilities, which is essentially the independent living philosophy.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. That's really awesome. Thank you again so much for sharing. I feel like every answer is just so articulate and so, just really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last question that I do want to ask before we wrap up is if you have a message to the business community, what would that be?
Yeah, I came to Disability Network Eastern Michigan as a former entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, I really prided myself on the work that I did with my digital documentation. I thought I was doing a fantastic job. And the reality is, less than 20% of the world's websites are accessible. Accessibility is attainable. And in many cases, it's the letter of the law. I remind folks, resources and tools are available to help you break barriers and create paths to accessibility while ultimately creating independence for the people that you serve with disabilities. Centers for Independent Living, such as Disability Network Eastern Michigan, are available to help guide you and connect you with resources that will help provide accessibility.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on these Spotlight sessions today. My last question is just if somebody wants to get in touch with you or with Disability Network Eastern Michigan, how can they go about doing so?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're available on every single social media platform you can imagine, but the easiest way to connect with us is our website. One of the things I'm also very proud of is being a part of that design team, and that is www.dnemichigan.org. There you'll be able to find access to all of our programs and services, our community events calendar, which includes all of those fantastic adaptive recreation programs that I was mentioning, and opportunities to connect with our information and referral line, which is there to serve.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely have that in the show notes and the description notes of this episode. But Chip, once again, I just want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Spotlight Sessions. It really was a pleasure to speak with you, get to know you a little bit more and the work that you're doing. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.